Hola amigos de Macabro, querida banda macabra, bienvenidos. Estamos ahora con Karl Holt, que es ni más ni menos que el director y también protagonista de Benny Loves You. Una de las películas que, bueno, en lo personal, me parece de lo más divertido que he visto, de lo más, eh, vamos, de lo mejor que vamos a tener en el festival, ¿no? A mí me divirtió muchísimo. Yo espero que a ustedes también y que, bueno, que cuando estén viendo esta charla ya hayan visto Benny, ya sea en la Cineteca Nacional o en streaming aquí en plataforma Cine. Y si no la han visto, paren en este momento este video y vayan a ver Benny Loves You, para que después vean algunos de los comentarios que tenemos aquí con Karl Holt. Karl, nice to meet you. I'm very, very, very happy to have Benny Loves You at the festival. We're happy, very, very happy.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for showing our little movie. It's really appreciated. And hello to all the audience that are tuning in to see it today.
Thank you very much. Well, tell us, how did you came with the idea of Benny Loves You?
It actually goes back a really long time. I think I just liked that idea of all the puppet killer toy movies are all evil puppets. They majoritively, all of them look evil. They're possessed by an evil spirit, and I just thought it would be funny if there was a toy that did all of that macabre stuff, but had this loving, cute personality. It looked cuddly, it had big eyes. It was like a little baby. It would move around in a way which, like a child would play with a toy. So it would flop around when it was, and it could only say that one of the key things, it could only say the lovable things that were on its voice box inside. So that was kind of just the starting point. And we made a short film well over 10 years ago now. And I just went around my mate's house and shot this, and it was done with a little Tickle Me Elmo. And that seemed to go down well at some of the festivals. We submitted it as a short many years ago, and it got quite a good response. And so it was always in the back of my mind that I thought that could be an idea that if it was completely, reconceptualized and written from the ground up, we could turn that into a feature. So yeah, this was probably written back in 2013. We shot it in 2014 and a part of 2015, and then it took me from 2015 to 2019 to finish it on my computer, doing all the digital effects and the sound and everything, just sat outside in the garden on my PC for 4 years. And I quit my job so that I could sit and do that. So it's been a really big part of my life now. And I guess when I first finished it, I wasn't sure if anybody would bloody see it. You just, like, who's going to watch? I've spent 4 years of my life on this and nobody's going to watch it. So it's really cool that now it's getting out there into the festivals and it's being released internationally. So yeah, I'm quite happy that it's getting out there and people are responding to it.
Yeah, so I found a lot of references all over the movie, not only the puppet ones. Tell us about it, please.
I think if you're going to make a serious horror film, doing that, I think, is a bit of a no-no. But if it's, our film is very irreverent. It's very silly. And I felt like, for me, I've grown up my entire life watching horror films. So this is a bit of a love letter to the genre. So I kind of wrote the film first in terms of all the proper beats of the film and the emotional arc, and did all that. And then as a second pass, went into the script and like, right, now how can we sort of turn these scenes and put in lots of references of the films that I loved and the films that I grew up watching. So that's what we did. And some of them are really obvious, some of them are not so obvious. And the bit that I found quite funny is that, people will point out the ones which are obvious, but then people are pointing out stuff that I didn't even intend to be in there. They'll be like, oh, this is a reference to that movie. And I'll think, I've never even seen that movie. So, and then there are other things that people haven't picked up on at all. So yeah, that part of it's really interesting to me, that people see what they want to see in it, and sometimes people haven't picked up on the stuff that I think is really obvious that's been put in and no one's picked up on it. But there's a lot in there. It's practically every scene we try to seed something underneath it that's like a reference to something else that I grew up loving.
Yeah, which I think 80s is everywhere over there. How about it? Am I right?
The 80s? Oh,
yeah, the 80s. Yeah.
Well, that was when, I mean, I grew up probably when I was 13 or 14. So that would have been, mid to late 80s was when I was really getting into horror films. I mean, I got into them when I was about 10, but I would probably say the 80s was my biggest influence. That was when, you know, I saw, for me, Halloween for the first time and started to watch Italian horror. And I was down the video store practically every day, just looking at what the new releases were. But it was different because, you know, there was no internet back then. There weren't really even many magazines outside of Fangoria, which you couldn't really get in the UK. So the only way we would ever find out about stuff was when it came out of the video store. So I was practically down there every day, just like, what's new? And anything that come out with a horror front cover, I'd rent it. So yeah, and then obviously as you get older and you don't have the time to do that. So that's probably why the 80s is more referenced in the film, because that was my time growing up.
Yeah, so, well, about the character, Jack, your character.
Yes, Jack.
Jack, I think we all know a guy like Jack. Always. So I think that's, I find it very, very lovely. A little bit silly, a little bit naive. I don't know. How about it?
Well, I think there's more of that now than ever before. You know, when I was growing up in, like you say, in the 80s, there was, you know, I think my mum and dad were 22 when they got married, got a house and met me. But then my generation come up and then all of a sudden nobody's leaving home anymore and nobody can afford to get a house. And so I think part of it is that we all sort of remained kids for much longer. Because people couldn't actually afford to get out of their homes and move out. And, you know, that idea of somebody that's still hanging on to their childhood. I mean, in part, there is, you know, I wouldn't say I'm like Jack, I'm not like Jack, but I certainly have all those sort of childish instincts. You know, I still play games, I still love my horror films. You know, it's, I wanted to create a character that wanted to try and hang on to as much as he could about childhood and didn't want to move on. And I think, like you say, we all know somebody like that on varying degrees. And it was someone that I just thought, well, we had a really limited budget for this film and I couldn't afford, really, I wouldn't have been able to afford it to have cast a real actor in that role. So I thought, well, it's a part that I can play. And it kind of made sense when we were shooting that whenever the actors that would come down, all that was kind of scheduled. And this is the first film I'd ever done. Quite quickly, that scheduling went completely out of the window. You know, the first night where you're filming and you're up till 4 a.m. and then you've got to be up at 7 a.m. the next day and everybody's knackered and everybody's getting grumpy. And I thought, right, well, if I can take all of my scenes where I'm just with Benny and we can put them back to the back of the schedule, we created more time for ourselves. And wouldn't have been able to have done that if I'd have had an actor in the role. But because I was directing the film as well, you know, it's like you've got a free actor. Whenever I'm on set, you know, it's like I can double up and be the actor as well. So it was really like a financial reason why I'm in the role. But it was one that I thought, you know, like you say, it's quite a familiar character. It's probably one that it didn't require an awful lot amount of imagination to play.
Yeah, well, and I find that the movie, these main these things that made us identify with it, you know, to have your old toys and the relationship with the toys. I think the relationship with the toys is very, very important. When I was a little girl, I couldn't stand dolls because I was very afraid of dolls. Maybe because I saw a Mexican movie where the doll, it was a B movie, in fact, where the doll killed with the eyes. So
you didn't have any dolls yourself?
I didn't have dolls. I couldn't stand dolls right next to me. So at this part when the girl was like, I don't want it, and the mother was like, oh, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, nothing is going to happen, go to sleep. I was like, oh my god, this is my childhood. Yeah.
You must have had something else instead of dolls. Did you have teddy bears instead?
No,
No
I couldn't
teddy
stand
bears,
it.
no
No
dolls,
teddy
nothing.
bears. No, no. So I'm safe.
You are, yeah. You're the safest on the planet. Nobody's coming for you, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess that's one of these things that are really basic. These basic fears that we have when we are very young, and then I think you work with that really good in that movie. Yeah, it's something a little bit parodic, but at the same time it works.
Yeah, I think
to explore these fears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is something that you do as a child. I always remember I was really young. I must have been maybe 5 years old, and every Christmas I'd get a couple of little things. And one Christmas, my mum and dad got me this kind of it was almost like a triceratops. It was a little dinosaur. And I looked at it and thinking, oh, that looks quite ugly. And they turned it on and it went, boom, and it marched across the carpet to me. And I remember just like screaming and crying when this thing came towards me. And I was initially just like really, really scared by it. And then once they were like, oh, it's okay. So it's just a toy. It's just a toy. And then like, I don't know, 30 minutes later, it was my favorite toy ever. And then I couldn't stop playing with it. So I do think there's part of it is that those things do help you to get over some of your fears. And it's no surprise that, as an adult, you see that theme recurring in movies as well. That the idea that they're coming back to you, the idea that those fears, resurface.
Yeah. Well, and well, this part, the slasher part, I guess, going now to Benny, that somehow he is alive, and then he wants to help Jack.
Yes.
Somehow he wants to protect him, and then he's doing all this, all this murder, all these killings, the slasher killings. How did you find this inspiration also on 80s movies? I'm sure about it.
Well, the idea for that was I didn't want Benny to be possessed. I always my entire thing was that Benny has to be Benny. He has to be his own personality. Like if you're Chucky, obviously Chucky is possessed by the spirit of a human, and a lot of the times in these films that the toys are possessed by a demonic spirit. And I thought that kind of defeats the purpose in the film I want to do. I want it to be that it's the personality of that toy that just comes to life. So I was really careful not to have like a supernatural or spirit element, because that makes their bond stronger, because this is the toy that he grew up with. And that made me think, obviously, it would do anything to protect him, because they had this, and anybody that's had a favorite toy will have that thing where, he probably is your best friend for those first few years. It's the person that the toy that you take to sleep with you at night. And there is a bond there, which as you get older, you throw it all out. And then I guess there's always been that sentimental part of me as well, that I would go back to my mum and dad's. They live like a couple of 100 miles away now. And they're like, oh, you've got to clean out your room. You've got to clean out all your old toys. And you kind of forget about them. But then when you go into the loft and open it all up and you see all of your childhood toys, you then think, oh, I can't throw this out. But yet you've boxed it up. You've had it in the loft for like 15 years and you've never seen it. But as soon as you see it, you think, I can't throw that out. So yeah, for me, it was about that idea of letting go, like properly letting go of those things that you loved as a child, and what the toy might think about that. And and in this case, Benny didn't want to kill Jack. He wanted to kill anybody that got in the way of their relationship. And for me, that's I thought that's what would make the film interesting, because we set the film up at the start. Like when the girl is killed, she throws the toy out and it comes back and kills her. So when Jack throws his toy out, you know, he's setting up that expectation that it's going to come back and kill Jack. So we play with that a little bit. But then, of course, no, he doesn't want to kill Jack. He wants to still be best friends with him and have that relationship they had when they were kids. So it just made sense to me that that would probably cause, you know, more chaos, more fun, a bit of a love triangle between him and his new girlfriend and the toy. And yeah, I think without that, the film would be incredibly different and probably a bit more generic if I hadn't gone down that angle. It creates a lot more fun possibilities if that's the nature of the teddy bear. And he's like a little psychotic killer, you know, trapped in a cute little baby face.
Yeah, right now I would love to have a Benny. Oh my, he's here.
Yeah, when we showed it at Fright Fest last year, and we never intended to do this, but when people watched it, they said, oh, I want a Benny. And so, yeah, we went out of our way and we got some Bennies made. So we've made one with, like, he's got a little push button in him. And so he says all the phrases from the film.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, people seem to want their own Bennies. So we started getting them made.
Yeah, well, I saw it's in the news about the toys.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have Benny at home.
We'll send you a Benny. He'll be the only toy that you have, though.
No, right now I have some, but that's very interesting. That the part of Benny, in fact, he's not an evil toy. I think that's very, very different to most of the movies. Like, as you said, that there is also something evil that comes inside them, and then they became these serial killers or terrible monsters. But no, Benny is lovely. It's also lovely toy.
Just a little bit possessive.
A little bit possessive only. Yeah, but I think he does all things because he thinks he's right.
Yeah, I tried to also put into the film that he was helping Jack in some respects. You know, Benny kind of helps Jack as well. You know, there's part of I think that Benny does a lot of things that Jack would like to do. There's, you know, whether that's the way he's treated at work, whether that's the way the way that Jack operates with the outside world. In a way, he's still a kid there, and he hasn't grown up. And actually, Benny doing the horrible things that he does enables Jack to come to terms with some things. So there are pluses and minuses to the relationship. Yes, you know, Benny's a crazy killer, but in some respects, he helps Jack. And there's a bit of a line there in that, you know, Benny kind of kills people that probably Jack would like to kill. It's, you know, he's almost an extension of him. The way that I've written it, the way that I've talked about it is that when Jack, there's a point in the movie where, you know, Jack has to move on and he's been told that he now has to grow up. And, you know, that idea of having to completely turn your life on its head and lock everything that you are in the basement. You know, he has to take down all of his posters, all of his toys, because he's told that, you know, you must have to grow. In order to survive in this world, you have to grow up. And you can't do that. You can't just take everything that is you and box it up. So when Benny comes to life, that was meant to be almost like Jack's repressed feelings are bubbling to the surface and coming up. So there definitely is a connection between, you know, it's almost like Benny is kind of containing some of the repressed emotions that Jack's burying away as well. You know, maybe a bit like Bad Milo, if you've seen that. Is that kind of...
Yeah, Bad Milo, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, and as for the production, you told me this started as a short film, but you told me that you had 5 years to complete this feature.
Yeah.
So how it was? How was the process to film it?
Yeah, so it was shot in 2014, so it's a long time ago. So I look older, all the phones in it really old. You know, that's one thing that ages more than anything in the movie is when you see a phone with a screen this big and it's like that thick. So yeah, the phone's aging, but it was shot in 2014 and then we shot a little bit of in 2015. So it's basically only 2 locations in the film. And there's only like 3 or 4 people on crew most of the time. So it was me, my mum. Basically, my mum did boom work for virtually the whole film, and my best friend John, who was on camera. So a lot of the times it was 3 of us, and I had my friend Mark came down to help, and Pete. But there was never more than like 4 or 5 people on the crew. So it took a long time to make. So we shot it in the summer of 2014, bits of it in 2015, and then I thought, right, I'll sit down and edit it. And I thought it was, at the time, I thought it was going to take me about a year. So I quit my job. So well, I put all the freelance work on hold and said, I'm going to concentrate on making this. And then about a year later, I think I was only about 20 minutes into the film. I was like, oh shit, this is going to take me far much longer than I thought it was going to. And that just carried on. And, you know, again, without giving too much away, but the end of the film gets quite CG heavy. And I think probably the last 20 minutes of the film maybe took me a year to do just the last 20 minutes of the movie. So all in all, it was 5 years. If you include the year of filming, we finished it in maybe August 2019, submitted it to some festivals, and then we decided to chop it down. So we did like a bit of a re-edit. But yeah, I'd say all in all, it was about 5 years. But that's what happens when you've got no crew and you're doing everything yourself. You know, I did the obviously the edit and the animation, and we did the Foley ourselves. And I learned how to do music as well. And we made, the bit I like the most, we made 2 pop songs for the film. There's 2 little pop songs, which we got vocalists to record tracks for. So, you know, all of it was done like in my shed at the back of the garden. So it's a real labor of love. And yeah, I just hope that people enjoy it.
I guess it will happen because I think Benny Loves You is a movie that we need at this moment because we need to have fun. We need and this and the movie is very clever. I think that's one of the most important things about it. It's not only this movie that takes a little bit from this and from that. It's a really good work. People will have fun. People will feel a little bit, you know, this nostalgic because of this all the toys, and I think it's a little bit also that you can find yourself over there. As I said, all your fears are there, and I found it a real when I finished watching the movie, it was like, oh my God, I feel so good. Yeah. So thank you, Karl, for doing this movie, and thank you for being with us and for letting us show it at Macabro.
No problem. Thank you to everybody that watches it, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, you know, come on to, we're on Twitter and we're on Facebook. Just search for Benny Loves You. So, you know, if you post any comments on there, we always respond to them. And you know, yeah, it's just really nice to hear some feedback from the community as well. So thank you very much for showing our film, and we hope everybody enjoys it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karl.
Okay,
gracias, amigos. Gracias, queridos amigos que estuvieron viendo esta charla con Karl, platicando sobre algunos detalles de la película de Benny Loves You. Y bueno, pues ya como los invitó Karl hace un momento, pueden buscar a Benny Loves You en las redes sociales, pueden buscar a Karl y bueno, dejarle ahí algunos comentarios, ¿no? Sobre, ya que hayan visto la película, si les gustó, si quieren felicitarlo o cualquier otra cosa que quieran comentarle. Ya, como les comentaba, como les decía, Karl está en redes sociales y en Facebook, en Instagram, igual que la película de Benny Loves You. Muchas gracias y bueno, seguimos con todo en este 20º aniversario de Macabro. Muchas gracias.